Good afternoon. This is the special coverage of the coronavirus crisis using the combined forces of News 5 and Signal TV's 1 News, Radio 5 and 1PH. Wala pa sa kalahati ng mga dumadating na kargamento sa mga pantalan ang nakukuha, bunsod pa rin ng mahigpit na pagpapatupad ng enhanced community quarantine. Iginiit naman ng Philippine Ports Authority na prioridad ngayon ang mga kargamentong may medical supplies para sa frontliners. Para sa detalye, nagbabalita live mula sa Manila Port Area si Gerard de la Peña. Gerard.
Cheryl, alam mo, kapansin-pansin nga na patong-patong ang mga container dito sa port area at kapansin-pansin din na hindi katulad sa mga ordinaryong araw ay hindi masyado maraming truck ang mga pumupunta dito para nga kunin ang mga container na ito. Ayon sa Philippine Ports Authority, nasa 40% lamang ng ang nakukuha mga terminal dito sa Manila International Container Terminal at South Harbor. Sabi rin ng PPA, nasa priority naman ng Bureau of Customs ang pag-unload ng mga medical supplies at equipment. May sapat din silang tauhan para iproseso ang mga kargamento. Kung mapupuno raw ang pantalan, hindi malayong magpatupad ng tigil operasyon sa loob ng 1 linggo. Dahil dito, ang mga barko na hindi makapagbaba ng kargamento dahil sa kawalan ng espasyo ay papupuntahin muna sa next port of call. Kaya maraming produkto hindi makakarating, gayon din ang mga raw materials na ginagamit sa pagmamanupaktura ng iba't ibang produkto. Sabi naman ng grupo ng mga trucker, hindi lang daw dapat sa kanila ang sisi. Ayon sa Aduana Business Club, puro skeletal workforce ang nasa customs, ports at shipping lines, kaya mabagal ang pagproseso at pag-release ng mga cargo. Kaya ang dating nare-release ng 2 hanggang 3 araw, inaabot na ngayon ng linggo. Nakadagdag din sa problema ang lockdown dahil maraming driver at pahinante ang hindi makapasok. Gayun din ang mga checkpoint na humaharang sa mga truck kahit pa nauna nang ipinag-utos ng pamahalaan na hindi dapat hinaharangan ang delivery ng essential goods. Cheryl, inirinig din ng mga trucker sa pamahalaan na tanggalin muna yung mga charges o mga penalties na pinapataw sa kanila dahil dito sa mga aberya katulad ng demorahe at mga storage fees. Dahil sa bandang huli, sa mga consumer din ipapataw ang mga ito at magmamahal lamang ang presyo ng mga bilihin. Hiniling din nila sa IATF na siguraduhin makakadaan ang kanilang mga truck sa mga checkpoint para hindi maantala yung delivery ng mga produkto. Cheryl.
Maraming salamat, Gerard de la Peña. The Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases will come up with ways to help airlines cope with travel restrictions and other concerns amid the COVID-19 threat. Cabinet Secretary and IATF spokesperson Carlo Nograles bears that local airlines have asked the government to waive navigational fees and airport charges. He adds that affected airline companies have sought assurance from the government that they may avail of loans from banks. Nograles says they will discuss the matter with President Duterte's economic managers. Meanwhile, all air carriers have temporarily suspended all commercial flights flying out at the Clark International Airport starting Friday, April 3. However, Clark Airport will remain operational to service essential cargo flights. The Philippine Airlines has also announced the temporary suspension of all domestic and international flights until April 14. That's on the back of collapse in travel demand and staffing challenges, according to the airline company. Good news naman tayo mga kapatid, namigay po ng tilapia ang mayor ng Rapu-Rapu Albay na si Boy Galicia sa kanyang mga kababayang apektado ng enhanced community quarantine. Ibinahagi po ng Rapu-Rapu LGU ang mga larawan kung saan makikita ang isang pickup truck na puno ng mga isda. Ayon sa netizen, galing ang mga tilapia sa sariling fish pond ng alkalde. Personal din itong i-deliver ni Mayor Galicia sa mga residente. Sa huling tala ng DOH, hindi bababa sa 4 ang kumpirmadong kaso ng COVID-19 sa Bicol region. We'll continue the discussion over at 1 News, 1PH, and Radio 5. For now, that's the latest on the coronavirus crisis. For News 5, I'm Cheryl Cosim. We are 1 News.
Good afternoon, I'm Danny Laurel reporting to you guys on the markets and the economy live from Alabang. Now here are things you need to know this afternoon, let's say. First of all, the World Bank and Citigroup joins in on the chorus on the growth downgrades for the Philippine economy. Relatedly, you've got the PMI or the IHS Manufacturing Index for the month of March, the slowest or a contraction actually since the series began. You've got miners scrambling, you've got Nickel Asia shutting plants that produced 60% of their output in 2019. Airline companies are seeking government help to survive this virus outbreak and what they are now calling an existential threat. Silver lining though, guys, markets closed today, this Wednesday. That's at 5408.52. That's up by 1 6/10%. Another day in the green. So let's kick off on the economic front. You're going to be seeing on your screens here the World Bank, which does say that the Philippine economy may contract by as much as 0.5%. So not a lot of good news on that front. But they do have a base case scenario. So let's kick off with that. They did say that the base case, so what they are really seeing for the economy this year, is that we still will be at positive growth territory, albeit much softer than what we've seen, especially in previous quarters and years. They're now seeing the Philippine economy growing at 3%. That is a hefty downgrade from the 6.1% they had projected in January. But they do see the growth picking up, especially if things, normalize, and also if all of these risks are contained by the government, for example, and we are able to set a recovery path. They are seeing growth next year, that is 2021, to pick up to 6.2% and even accelerate to 6.4% in 2022. But again, they do flag a lot of key risks, especially if the ECQ is extended for more than 1 month, and in the very worst case, they see the economy contracting by 0.5%. And they do see it recovering, but the recovery would be muted next year to just 4.1% of growth. They see the rest of the region, in these dire conditions as well. They're looking at the Asian region to contract by 2.8% this year in the worst case scenario. But they are, of course, saying they are still assuming the base case, and that assumes that the third quarter will see a pickup in a lot of our economic sectors. Here, recall that NEDA, Secretary Ernie Pernia, had also had these two scenarios, let's say, the worst case being a contraction of 0.6%, and the best case, let's say, a growth of 4.3%. Another one that is adding to all of these downgrades in terms of growth, you've got Citi. They have also cut our 2020 GDP forecast. They're seeing growth, however, still in positive territory. They're seeing our economy growing by 3.2%, but still that is, of course, a downgrade from what they had earlier seen as a growth of 5.4%. But they said their worst case scenario is not as bad, let's say, as the World Bank or even the worst case of the government. They do see in a worst case scenario, if the lockdown is extended, we will not have any growth. So it will just be 0%. We will not be contracting naman. Now, the government, of course, they've been scrambling. They've been trying to, of course, prepare this package. A lot of people asking, saan ba pupunta itong, repurposed budget, so to speak. In a Viber message, Secretary Sonny Dominguez of the Department of Finance, package is expected to be ready by the end of this week. So we're still awaiting very, very clear details. They have already said several things. For instance, they will be putting a lot of aid into small firms, but we want to know exactly where this will go. Another thing they have said, this from the DOF, is that they've estimated that they need around 100 billion pesos per month worth of subsidies. So they've already been, in talks with the ADB, for example, on especially tapping loan facilities, but also just receiving financial aid ASAP. Another bad news that I'm gonna have to break, which I already mentioned earlier on, the PMI. So the PMI for the month of March, and that is, of course, the manufacturing index, that was at 39.7. That is from 52.3 in the month of February. Now, what does this mean? Whenever you have a PMI that is above 50, it means that the economy is expanding. So, maraming na produce. And when you see it below 50, that means that our economy is contracting. And what's very worrying here is ito yung lowest na nakita natin since the series has begun. Manufacturing output is contracting, so it's not growing. And this, of course, is very clear when you talk to people in the industry. For example, the Semiconductors Association of the Philippines, or SAPI, they said that they're facing a lot of exporting, and these are the Philippine exporters. We export a lot of semicon. And this from Dan Lachica. He is, of course, the head of SAPI. He's saying a lot of order backlogs in the electronics field, but they are working with the Trade Department and PEZA. They want to still keep a skeletal force. But he has warned some companies have already shut down. You've also got some multinational companies considering to transfer their production outside of the Philippines. So one sector that is really suffering right now, of course, the manufacturing industry. Some good news, you've got inflation. I've talked about this earlier on as well. Inflation for the poor household. So that is the 30%, yung pinakamahihirap sa bansa. That eased in February. So it just means that yung pag-angat ng mga presyo mas mababa than usual. So the inflation rate ng households in the bottom 30% was actually 2.2% in February, slightly less than the January. So ano yung mas bumaba yung rate ng increase? So tumatas pa rin yung bilihin but at a less rate. You've actually got food and transport prices, so it's still increasing but not as bad as before. And you've got Union Bank's chief economist Carlo Asuncion even saying that March might be even better for prices, especially with the collapse in oil prices. So expect a lower inflation pa going forward. Now recall that you've got also the Department of Trade and Industry. They issued a price freeze on basic goods. Right now it's from March 16 to May 15. So even longer than the ECQ period. Moving on, however, to markets, I just want to show our viewers here how the index is continuing to strengthen. It's quite a big deal, actually, that we are above 5,400 right now, especially since we did see several sell-offs at least at the start of the week. Recall on Tuesday, so yesterday, we had quite a strong rebound. Analysts say that was on the back of China having shown that they're able to pick up, the manufacturing and expand much faster than expected. So analysts had not expected their PMI index to be expanding, and it actually did. Another thing that I want to watch out for, especially now, are there's still some stock picks that analysts are looking at. And I get this question a lot. I have a couple for you. This is from COL's Justin Cheng. He's looking at Pure Gold and Century Pacific to benefit from the quarantine. He's also saying URC and Robinson's Retail to be relatively resilient. So again, still looking at the consumer space, possibly buoying our markets, and those are his picks for now. And I just want to show you guys, you're going to be seeing on your screens here how our sectors perform. The best performer were mining and oil, that was up by 4%. But you've also got everybody else in the green, from services to holding firms. Financials up by 1 3/10%. Properties as well up by 1 2/10%. Industrials too. So generally speaking, extending those gains, hopefully those pull throughout the rest of the trading week. Very quickly, also just want to show you guys the leaders and the laggards of today's trade. Again, recall that we're in shortened trading hours, so nag-close na yung bourse just before 1 o'clock. JG Summit leading the charge, that is up by more than 7%. followed by Aboitiz Power and Metro Pacific. Those also enjoyed gains. Aboitiz Power, for instance, up by 6.5%. Metro Pac up by 5.4%. You've still got some sitting out this rally. For example, LTG Group shed 3.7%. But this was a star performer yesterday, hitting close to 17% gains. So some corrections happening there, maybe some profit taking as well. Jollibee Foods slumping by 3%, and Robinson's Land, another worst performer, down by 1.8%. Moving on to some corporate news. You've got local airlines having a very hard time. That's been very, very obvious. They're now trying to find ways to ask the government for some help and some reprieve. They call the COVID-19 a catastrophic impact. So this is from the Air Carriers Association of the Philippines. So that's ACAP. And that comprises basically Philippine Airlines, Cebu Pacific, AirAsia, PAL Express, and SebGo. They are just asking the government that they need some working capital to be able to fund their operation. So they're asking for access to emergency lines of credit. So para may pera sila for at least 6 months of operation. So that's what they're really asking for here. Sinabi nila that the shutdown, right now, they've shut it down 14. That canceled over 30,000 flights, and nearly 5 million passengers were affected. Now, separately, just from a global point of view, you've got IATA, so IATA, that is the International Air Transport Association, saying that up to 50% of global airlines face possible bankruptcy in the coming weeks. So it's quite worrying for them. Very quick, Cebu Pacific and PAL. Cebu Pacific actually up by 0.6% today, so not as much as the bourse gained, so below average there. And PAL very flat, so zero change. That's trading at 6 pesos and 60 centavos on the back of quite low volumes of trade. Another sector that I really want to watch out for are the miners. I did say that the mining and oil counter was the best performer today. And that's amid the fact that you've got Nickel Asia suspending their operations. There are 2 subsidiaries of Nickel Asia, and that is Surigao del Norte's Paganito Mining Corporation, and you've got Hinatuan Mining. So together, these 2 are 60% of Nickel Asia's total nickel ore shipments for 2019. So if you shut that down, that's 60% of their production gone. And you could see Nickel Asia that was trading down by 0.7%. You've got Global Ferronickel trying to avoid the same thing. So they are actually hoping that the government will allow them to still continue their operations, at least for their export related firm or industries, which is called the Platinum Group. So they said hopefully this will be exempted from the quarantine. That was up today by 3.5%, still awaiting, of course, the government's reply to that. And finally, guys, just wanted to end with some good news. You've got the SM Group, so a lot of firms right now in these times of crisis pitching in, trying to help, be more socially responsible in these times. And it's nice to see that happening all around. You've got the SM Group increasing the donations for battling this COVID-19 to 170 million pesos worth of donations. So their initial pledge was actually 100 million pesos, and now that's close to double actually. They're prioritizing PPE purchases and also to help develop the locally developed testing kits and purchase some ventilators. So they've so far already distributed to the big hospitals that are, of course, on the front lines of this disease. But some good news there. SMIC, of course, not necessarily related to these donations, but nevertheless also enjoying a bump up of close to 1% this trading day. And that's a look into the business day this Wednesday, April 1st, 2020. I'm Danny Laurel. Thank you so much for watching. We are One News.